Margaret, what is your girl?
Inside the door of love and mercy, you wonder if there's a place there for you. You know there's peace inside, but still you're searching for someone who understands the pain you've been through. Spirit waits with open arms, calling out your name. Come on in, welcome home to a love you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in, come on in, come on in. There is room enough in the whole love for someone just like you. Come on in, welcome home to a love you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in, come on in, come on in. Come on in, welcome home to a love you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in, come on in, come on in.
Now that we're all here, welcome. What a rousing welcome by our wondrous musician, Jim and Carlin. Welcome to you on this Father's Day. As you can see, I'm certainly not Rev Lori, nor am I Sylvia. My name's Pauline, for anyone who's new. I'm one of our prayer chaplains. And today we honor our fathers. Fathers. Fathers, grandfathers, stepfathers, even if you're an uncle or a brother, even if you're a single man, we honor you. Because in our world, so often, there is male bashing. We know about that. Today we send you, as members of unity, a lot of love and respect. Because you're a part of the life-giving force. You're a part of the love and the life and the energy that flows throughout our world. And we are so grateful for you. And today, if you're sitting near a dad or in front of a dad, I invite you to look straight into their eyes and say, I respect you and I honor you on this Father's Day. And to all of our members and our friends who may be watching from far away, Rev Lori's at Unity Village right now, Sylvia's out west, and some of our other members may be traveling. To all of those people, we send our wishes, our love, and our heartfelt appreciation for dads. We do have some special announcements right now.
Bueno, bueno. So, I am so excited because this time next week at noon, we will be holding our Mexican condo lottery draw. And somebody is going to win 2 weeks in a luxury condo in San Cabo, thank you, that place. And this is a wonderful tradition we have here. And you know what we do is we support our music program through this fundraiser. And I want to say something about Mexico because I love Mexico. And all that stuff you read in the media, you kind of have to ignore that, like you have to ignore a lot of the stuff in the media, okay? It is a beautiful country. The people are lovely. The flowers are gorgeous. The water is just heaven. And this particular village has all kinds of things for you to do, like there's art galleries and restaurants and there's golf. And it is a little bit of heaven. So make sure you pick up your tickets today if you have not done that yet. And I hope you all win, but not going to happen. Gracias.
And today, right after our service, there will be a town hall meeting and potluck. I believe it's in the fellowship room today. That will begin at 12 o'clock and run until 1:15. And our board members would love to see you there. And the Father's Day tickets will still be on sale right after our service today. And the winner of the draw will be announced at the town hall meeting. So please take a chance to pick up the tickets. You can see that the sheets are valuable and a lot of dads are big hockey fans. Let us affirm our vision today. A world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And our mission, we are a loving, inclusive community co-creating with spirit to transform lives.
All right, you folks all know this one. Let's have some fun. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. I'm not holding it in anymore. Gonna shout it out loud. I understand what I'm here for, and what this talk is about. To my love, to my laughter, to my comfort and smile. To my love, to my kindness, to my heart's open wide. To my love, to my passion, to my taking a chance. To my love, to my service, to my lending a hand. Lending a hand. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. There's a voice that I've heard for years. I learned to keep it inside. Well, now it's coming out and clear. I want to keep her alive. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smile. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's God's service is a lending a hand. Lending a hand, that's good now. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bringing in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Well, nice job, folks.
Good morning and happy Father's Day to all of you guys. Good morning. Unity's foundation is affirmative prayer. If you wish prayer for someone else or for yourself, you're invited to use our prayer box right in the front. You put a first name only on a piece of paper and place it in the box. There's no need to explain the situation, as God is all-knowing. It will be prayed over here at Unity by our prayer angels for 30 days and then sent on to Silent Unity for additional prayer. Remember, 24 hours a day, you can call 1-800-NOW-PRAY to reach Silent Unity, where people have been praying with and for people for over 130 years. If you wish private one-on-one prayer, we have a prayer chaplain available to pray with you following today's service. And that will be Dawn, I believe.
Hi.
Oh, it's Patty. Okay, it's Patty. You can meet her in our prayer room, which is in the back. You go through the fellowship room, up the stairs, and in behind the screen here. And today's, I guess, what happened to Dawn? Okay, please, Patty, please come forward and lead us in prayer.
I'm going to take a moment. As we gather in this place and open ourselves to the flow of the divine through words, songs, and prayer, we know that divine inspiration, which is our inner source and direction, is with us today and always. And as we allow this flow of infinite wisdom to direct and guide us in all that we do, think, and feel, we are truly grateful. Now we turn within and enter into that sacred heart space, that silence of the divine being, and continue to allow the love and peace to flow out through us into this room, to our Facebook community, and to all communities and to the world beyond. We ask for blessings for all spiritual gatherings that are taking place around the world today and every day. And today we remember Unity of Vancouver and Unity of London. And now we take a moment to think of those who may need a little extra loving energy, and we whisper their names in this sacred space. We remember that divine intelligence is our inner source and our being, and today we ask for guidance, love, and light to fill our hearts, and with appreciation we say, and so it is. Amen.
And now for our message from the Daily Word brought to you by Silent Unity. Blessing for fathers. I honor all father figures in my prayers. Today is an opportunity to recognize and honor the fatherly influences in my life, whether their role is a parent, mentor, teacher, or coach. Their encouragement and guidance gave me the gift of believing in myself. My prayers also include fathers and stepfathers who are new to the role, learning the importance, dedication, and patience it takes. I bless the role models who are helping to build life skills and live by example. Whether changing a diaper, telling a story, attending school functions, or teaching how to ride a bike, at the heart of all that matters is love. God's presence is active in their lives. I pray they live in this awareness and enjoy the experience of watching children discover who they are and what they're capable of achieving. And from Isaiah 41, verse 10, I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you.
He isn't much in the eyes of the world. He'll never make history. Well, he may not be much in the eyes of the world, but he is the world to me. My dad. Now here is a man, but to me he is everything strong. Oh, he can't do wrong, my dad. My dad. Now he understands. When I bring him troubles to share, oh, he's always there, my dad. I was small, I was 10 feet tall. I walked by his side, and everyone would say that's his son, and my heart was burst with pride. My dad, oh, I love him so, and I only hope that someday my own son will say, my dad. Now here is a man, my dad.
Very much.
Our guest speaker today is a wonderful speaker, and we've heard him on many occasions. He has several degrees: psychology, sociology, college diploma specializing in social services, and certificates in long-term care management and municipal administration. Tony Orvidas founded Abundance Together, a semi-spiritual online journal and website community, after a long and distinguished career as a director and administrator in social and human services. You can see that he comes very well equipped to present at Unity, as well as being a lifelong student and teacher of spirituality, metaphysics, and abundance manifestation. Tony is an experienced mentor, a speaker, a trainer, the author of Using the Law of Attraction. And just to prove that he's very down to earth, he's a motorcycle riding instructor at Fanshawe College. Tony and his wife Bonnie have been supporters at Unity of London since 2002 and active members for the past 7 years. He's a regular speaker here at Unity. He's also a Sunday counter, a platform assistant, vice president of the board of directors, and chairs all of the volunteer services. And I know that because he sends out frequent emails just updating people about when and where they're to volunteer. I personally really appreciate that. Tony, today, will be presenting a message, I'm guessing, about fathers. And when you saw me walk over to him before, he doesn't have our little screen, but Tony doesn't need that little screen that speakers use sometimes. Please help me welcome, as our speaker at Unity of London, Tony Orvidas.
Gotta get my stuff together here. Hello. She don't seem to be working.
Well, the remote's in trouble now.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you the thumbs up. All right. Here's my first thumb. Thanks, Pauline. Good morning, Unity of London. As they say, if things can go wrong, they do. Just kind of go with the flow. What is it today? What day is it? Yeah, you got it. So let's start off with a little story about dads. Back in the 60s, a young man had just received his driver's license and asked his father, a Unity minister, if they could discuss the use of the family car. His father took him to the study and said to the boy, "I'll make a deal with you, son. You bring your grades up from a C to a B average, study your Bible and the Fillmore teachings a little, get your hair cut, and we'll talk about the car." Well, the boy thought about it for a moment, decided that he'd best settle for the offer, and they agreed. After about 6 weeks, the boy came back and again asked his dad about the car. Well, they went to the study where his father said, "Son, I'm really, really proud of you. You brought your grades up, and I've observed that you've been reading your Bible, studying metaphysical teachings, participating in Unity study classes, but I'm really disappointed since you haven't had your haircut." The young man paused a moment and then said, "You know, Dad, I've been thinking about that, and I've noticed in my studies of the Old and New Testaments that Samson had long hair, Moses had long hair, John the Baptist had long hair, and likely Jesus himself had long hair." To which his father replied, "You're right, son. Did you also notice that they walked everywhere they went?" That's one of the things I want to talk to you about today, fathers and fathering, as Pauline mentioned, and about releasing and letting go, the unity theme for the month of June, and also about forgiveness. When I first ran across the story of the young man, his dad, and the haircut, I recalled a very similar conversation with my own dad. His final words to me after the discussion about hair were, "I'm your father, I make the decisions, and you will get your haircut." He even walked me back to the barber when I returned from my haircut with locks that he considered still too long. It was the 60s after all. That was a typical scenario between my dad and me. Now, what does the word father mean? What or who is a father? Well, according to the Metaphysical Bible by Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore, a father is one who has begotten a child, one who gives origin to, a generator. God as Father is the great cause, the cause of all life, all being. There's only one source from which all living things and all living objects proceed. We call this source Father. God is Father of all that is. He is the cause. There is also another sense in which we think of God as Father. Jesus would not have chosen the word Father to describe God had he wished simply to describe a cause or principle. Fillmore goes on to say, there is a relationship with God into which we can enter where he seems closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. When we enter into this relationship, we become acutely aware of God as a living presence, and we are lifted up by his love. In this consciousness, we're able to say, as Jesus did, Father. Anyway, coming back to Earth, we learn that, according to Wikipedia, a father is the male parent of a child. Beside the paternal bonds of a father to his children, the father may have parental, legal, and social relationship with the child, and certain rights and responsibilities, obligations. In almost all cultures, fathers are regarded as secondary caregivers. But this perception is slowly changing, especially in the Western society. The word father comes from the Old English vader, which is of Germanic origin, related to Dutch Vader. Remember Darth Vader? Okay, quick quiz. Who was Darth's son? Luke Skywalker. Very good, thank you. German Vater, from an Indo-European root shared by Latin pater and Greek pater. Now, a customary day for the celebration of fatherhood in Catholic Europe is known to date back all the way to the Middle Ages and maybe even longer. It's observed on March 19 as the feast day of St. Joseph, the father of Jesus. This celebration was brought to the Americas by the Spanish and Portuguese conquerors, and in Latin America, Father's Day is still celebrated in March. Father's Day was not recognized in the States or Canada outside Catholic traditions until the 20th century. In '66, Lyndon B. Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation honoring fathers, designating the third Sunday in June as Father's Day. It was made a permanent national holiday in the United States when Tricky Dicky Nixon signed it into law in 1972. By the way, Mother's Day was proclaimed by President Wilson in 1914. Do you really see that's fair? Now, is being father related to spirituality? Well, many say it is. Fathering is the most profound spiritual work I've ever done. My love for my son has given me a high purpose, writes Craig Scott from the Good Men Project. He goes on to say, being an involved father provides me with daily, intimate, and accessible spiritual teachings and lessons. Spiritual work is about being love. I often forget about my breath. I can forget to be mindful, but I can't forget that whatever I'm doing and how I'm doing it affects him, my son. This is sacred territory. Wherever we are, that's what we do, and that's what's needing to be done. It happens whenever we open up a book to read together, or fight over making the bed, or no sweeties to eat your green stuff. It's everywhere we are, in every moment. Living and breathing and thinking about our children is what many of us do as our spiritual work. Fathering is a loving spiritual practice. Now, Kanu, who is a witch, Wiccan, and fairy seer in Florida, he adds, there is sacred wisdom and strength in a fatherhood that can uphold the diverse and beautiful unfolding of the life of our children that blesses the men that can embrace it. Do you remember Father Knows Best? The dad, Jim Anderson, was played by Robert Young. How about Leave It to Beaver? Father Ward Cleaver was played by Hugh Beaumont. Or My Three Sons. Widower Steve Douglas, played by Fred McMurray, raised a brood of natural and adopted sons. I can still hear the sexy saxophone music in the theme song. Dun, 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 dun. I used to sing it as a kid. Kind of dates me, doesn't it? Now, those were the dads that I wanted as a kid, not the one I had. And then as I grew older, there was Courtship of Eddie's Father. Bill Bixby as Tom Corbett single-handedly with the assistance of a housekeeper, of course, raised his son. The type of dad I wished I could have had, and the type that I wanted to be if ever I was to be a parent myself. Let me tell you a little bit about my father to help you understand why I used to feel like I did. He and my mom were immigrants coming to Canada in '53 after leaving their homeland, Lithuania, on the Baltic coast in Western Europe. Dad had a degree in agronomy and was a captain in the Lithuanian army. He and many of his friends and family members departed their country when they realized they were caught between the Germans and the Ruskies during the Second World War. They ended up in a German work camp and then moved to England after the war because the Soviets occupied Lithuania and they couldn't return home. My dad and my mom had 2 sons, and I was the first. On arriving in Canada, remember that flag? That was way before the Maple Leaf. We settled in Hamilton, and eventually my dad purchased an old, large house on the escarpment. His brother and sister, his sister's son, both his mother and father lived on the 2nd and 3rd floors of this place. My brother and I, my parents, occupied the main floor in the basement. My dad spent a lot of time upstairs with his real family when he was not at work, so that usually we saw him only during meals. He was absent much of the time. He never even attended a single soccer game that my brother played. Being a military person, a very conservative Roman Catholic and solidly right-wing, my father was quite rigid and demanding and had a very high expectation of his sons. His great hope was that I would become a priest, and if I didn't, then I was to marry a rich Lithuanian Roman Catholic girl. The way my dad dealt with disobedience was with a belt. He kept it on a high shelf in the kitchen and employed it on my brothers and my bottoms whenever he felt that we were not meeting standard. I attempted to hide this belt once, but he pulled out another, even thicker belt. So I never tried that trick again. My relationship with my dad continued to deteriorate throughout high school. I was a bit of a rebel, racing around on a motorbike, hanging around with less than respectable friends, and doing poorly in my classes. Almost failed grade 13. That's when they had grade 13, of course. I also stopped attending Mass, going to a local restaurant or pool hall instead, and then lying to my folks about where I'd been. I was a major disappointment to my dad, and our relationship went downhill fast. Luckily, I was accepted at the University of Windsor and was able to leave home in my late teens. During my university years, I avoided coming back to the old homestead as much as possible, spending my summers on my aunt and uncle's farm working on tobacco. I dropped by to visit with my mother, my brother, and our old dog from time to time, but I stayed away from Dad as much as I could. After graduation, without a job, I ended up having to move home for a while. But at the first opportunity for decent employment, I left town, moved to Welland. There, I met my current wife, Bonnie, a Protestant of English-Irish descent. Keeps her on her toes. Now, this further alienated me from my father, who only came to our wedding on the advice of his priest. Bon and I chose to raise our kids in the United Church way back then, so my parents made a point of not attending the baptism of either of our 2 girls. Whenever we would visit my folks, I had to remind my dad that if he started discussing politics or religion, we would just leave. On a number of occasions, we stood up from the dining table and left the house because of the subject matter and his ongoing insulting comments. The kicker was when my brother and his wife requested that Bonnie and I be grandparents of his youngest child, a son. We agreed, but when my dad found out, he contacted the priest who was to perform the ceremony and threatened to report him to the bishop because he was allowing a non-Catholic, meaning my wife, to take on this very special and sacred role. This devastated my brother and his wife. I subsequently phoned my dad, called him a couple of less than complimentary names, and told him that he was not welcome at the baptism. We did not speak again for a long time. I carried my anger and resentment towards my dad for years. In his 70s, my dad became sick with cancer. I visited him both at home and then at the hospital. Now, before he made his transition, before he died, he apologized to me for his behavior, for the way he had treated my wife, me, our children, but I just couldn't let it go, even though I verbally accepted his apology. However, over time, I began to rethink my position. I began to focus more on the good memories of the times we spent with my dad rather than the unhappy and unpleasant ones. I did forgiveness work, meditated on the relationship I'd had with my dad, did a lot of reading about creating my own reality and the law of attraction. And in the process of letting it go, of releasing the anger, the resentment, and the bitterness I had held towards my old man and our relationship, I developed a sense of calm, relief, serenity. I not only forgave him, but I also forgave myself for all those negative feelings that I'd held on to for such a long time. Rosemary Fillmore Ray, in the book that Truth Be Told, talks to us about choosing the path to forgiveness. She says, "It's true that people do bad things to one another. It's difficult to understand why some people behave as they do. However, if we can look beyond the act and into the person, we will see that it is their fear, their lack of awareness, which makes them act in destructive and painful ways. It's not to say we must accept bad behavior or we should stay in abusive relationships. However, it's not our responsibility to try to change others. It is our responsibility to release them to God. We do this through the power of love. The greatest gift we can give others is our faith that God's healing love is at work within them, bringing forth peace and harmony into their souls as well as into ours. When we let go and let God, we free both of us. As we forgive, so we are forgiven." Gerald and Diane Yampolsky in Unity magazine, if you don't get it, you should, it's great, share this about releasing attachments. As long as we are living in this human experience, our egos will work overtime to keep us attached to unresolved grievances, justified judgments, the behavior of others, and uncontrolled chaotic change. It's so easy to keep believing that the illusions our fear create are real and to hold on to unforgiving thoughts, thoughts born out of our fearful past and fed by fears of an unpredictable future. As we learn to release those attachments and begin to live only in the present, it becomes easier to let go of negativity and anxiety. So, by forgiving and releasing myself from my attachment to a fearful past and accepting responsibility for everything that has ever happened to me, by letting go of my victim mentality and my feeling sorry for myself, I became renewed. I set a prisoner free, and that prisoner was me. A while back, I purchased a little tome called The Beginner's Guide to the Universe. I mentioned it to you once in a previous message. Mike Dooley is one of the leading metaphysical authors of our time, and the book's a compilation of his letters of insight and inspiration that he wrote as a father to and for his young daughter. It talks about life lessons and how we create our own reality. This is one of the things that he says about forgiveness. Forgiveness is only necessary when first there's blame. And blame can only be cast when first there's misunderstanding. Better to accept that at some level, for some reason, you chose to participate in whatever happened between you and someone else and thereby reclaim your power, than to abdicate responsibility through a false belief that bad things can happen to good people, setting yourself up for another fall. So, I understand now that I brought my dad into my life for a reason. I've come to realize that he taught me many things, lessons that have made me who I am today. I also know my dad loved me in his own way. And I regret that in many ways I was the same absent parent to my daughters that he was to me. You see, I was not the world's best father. Sure, I had my moments. But overall, I was absent much of the time as a result of my career, taking courses, service club work, golfing. And when I was home, I was busy caring for house and property and doing my homework. And I was angry much of the time. Both of my daughters now tell me I've come a long way since then, and I've significantly improved my parenting skills. They forgive me as I forgave my father. All of us knowing that it was part of our experience as spiritual beings who had incarnated onto this earth in human form. It's time now to do a quick review of today's message. Fathering is profound spiritual work. I am the keeper of my fears and of my blaming. Forgiveness sets the prisoner free, and that prisoner is me. I'm responsible for my life, and I create my own reality. And perfect fathers exist only on television programs. Let us now go into meditation. Oops.
Surely the presence of love is in this place. I can feel its mighty power and its grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings sing glory on each face. Surely the presence of love is in this place. Surely the presence of love is in this place. I can feel its mighty power and its grace. I can hear the rush of angels' wings sing glory on each face. Surely the presence of love is in this place.
Close your eyes, take a deep breath and relax. Take another deep breath and clear your mind of the chatter as best you can. We will initially do a guided meditation from the daily word, then go into silence. Let us begin. I let go and allow true forgiveness to flow through me. How often do I forgive something only to remember it later and have another emotional reaction? True forgiveness means letting go completely as many times as necessary. This does not mean that I choose who is forgivable and who is not. When Peter asked Jesus if he should forgive someone as many as 7 times, Jesus responded with, not 7 times, but I tell you, 7 times 7. Holding on to past hurts eats me up inside and keeps me from my good. Forgiveness heals. It gives me the freedom to move forward with love and joy. I know that forgiveness benefits me first and foremost. If I face a situation that seems unforgivable, I remind myself to focus on the situation and not the person or people involved. Forgiveness begins with me. Today, I hold a mirror up to myself and find the cleansing, purifying gift of forgiveness that is mine to give, as well as to receive. I understand that holding on to hurts and grudges only serves to weigh me down and diminish the light I share. I forgive, I let go, and I am free to be the best I can be. The restorative love of God opens the way to forgiveness. Let us now sit in silence for a few moments and contemplate on the power of forgiveness. Think about someone you have not completely and fully forgiven. Maybe someone whose lights you'd like to punch out. Thank them for what they have taught you, forgive them, and forgive yourself. Ho'oponopono. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. The Christ Spirit that is in me inspires me to forgive and to give thanks. I release and I let go. And so it is. Amen.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Thank you, Tony, for sharing your experience about your father and all the hardships that you've gone through. And I'm sure a lot of us share the same. And the reminder to forgive them. Thank you. And now it's our time for giving and receiving our tithes and offerings. Our unity principles teach us we are one with God, source, and so we give not to source, but as source. Giving has been described as the spiritual practice of radical generosity, insofar as the intent is to be an extension of spirit, tithing to what we wish to see flourish. Tithing as source is God in expression. At the back of the sanctuary, you will find attention cards. These may also be placed in the offering bag. This week, our prayer angels will uphold your intentions for what you want to achieve, either as a plan for your day or your life. Now let us affirm our prosperity together by singing our offering blessing.
Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that in this beautiful country standard. And there are all kinds of people, and Carl's going to do it for us. It's called Daddy's Hands. Sorry about that. Let me try it now. Sorry, I threw it off. Is your mic on now?
I think it is.
Okay, that's working. All right.
Years of work and worry have left their mark behind. I remember Daddy's hands, how they held my mama tight. That is my bag for something alright. There are things that I've forgotten, and love without the bad, but I'll always remember the love in Daddy's hands. Daddy's hands were soft and kind when I was crying. Daddy's hands were hard as steel when I've done wrong. Daddy's hands weren't always gentle, but I've come to understand. Always loving Daddy's hands. I remember Daddy's hands working till they bled, sacrificed unselfishly just to keep us all fed. If I could do this over, I'd live my life again. Never take for granted the love in Daddy's hands. Daddy's hands were soft and kind when I was crying. Daddy's hands were hard as steel when I'd done wrong. Daddy's hands weren't always gentle, but I've come to understand. There was always love in Daddy's hands. Daddy's hands were soft and kind when I was crying. Daddy's hands were bless these offerings that were made in a spirit of love and generosity. And we know that the tithes, the talents that go out into our community will bless all who benefit. And we say thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. I think this is a special preparation of photos by our dear Hilda. So we thank Hilda.
This is a song that Tony requested to be for the segments. Oh, my Papa, to me he was so wonderful. Oh, my Papa, to me he was so good. No one could be so gentle and so lovable. Oh, my Papa, he always understood. Gone are the days when he would take me on his knee, and with a smile he changed my tears to laughter. Oh, my Papa, so funny, so adorable, always the clown, so funny in his ways. Oh, my Papa, to me he was so wonderful. Deep in my heart, I miss him so today. Gone are the days when he could take me on his knee, and with a smile he changed my tears to laughter. Oh, my Papa, to me he was so wonderful. Deep in my heart, I miss him so today. Oh, my Papa, to me you were so wonderful. Oh, my Papa, I miss you every day. that was meant to be, with God as creator, family are we. Let's walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me, let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And as we go our way today, let us remember Tony's message about releasing any past disappointments or anger and replacing those with forgiveness and love. Also to remember to say hello and give a hug to a father today, even if it's not your father. And we go in peace and love. And let us close with our prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Yea, God.
Spread the word of what unity can offer. Spread the word of the message that you heard. Spread the word of what it means in your life. Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Spread the word of all the things we shared this morning. Spread the word. The years surrounding you by love. Spread the word. Now our doors and hearts are open. Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Anyone who's lost and lonely, spread the word. We extend the hand of love, spread the word. There's one all who join us, spread the word, spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Of what unity can offer, spread the word. That we believe in peace and love, spread the word. And our doors and hearts are open, spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word.
Margaret.